reviews, discussions, and theories about films in horror, sci-fi, and genre. This is the Horror Deconstruction. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more.
What is up, everybody? Deconstruction. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Motorcycle, and YouTube. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell icon. Hit that thumbs up. Let people know that you listen to the show with yours comp. Today's film is Gakidama, 1985. A reporter heads out to the forest to investigate a strange phenomenon and ends up getting a little more than he bargained for when he gets infected with an ancient mystical Japanese spirit known as Gakidama. Boy, that was a mouthful. Directed by Masayoshi Tsukita, written by Atsushi Yamatoya, Baku Yumamakura, starring Kazuyo Matsui, Kyozo Nagatsuka, and Ichiro Ogoro. Boy, oh boy, I'm having a tough one with this episode. But let's get into this film. This is another one of those Japanese Splatterfest movies, and probably my favorite one out of the group that we've seen. Guzu was second only to this one because this one has a very clear plot, and Biotherapy would be third. This is closer to Biotherapy in style and tone, as Guzu is a little bit. Guzu is fun and short, and Biotherapy is fun and short too. And obviously, we don't really talk about Kantan because that wasn't really that good. That's the one we did yesterday. But Gakidama is this sort of weird creature feature about two reporters that go off to the forest because they believe that they see these will-o'-the-wisp. And this is a thing that I've heard here and there, will-o'-the-wisp. I guess it's a sort of a phenomenon in woods where light and gases create lights that appear sort of out of thin air in the woods. So if you're like camping and you see lights, and people might think it's a UFO or it's a ghost or something like that. I don't really know much about it. I would like to actually look it up, probably on YouTube or something like that. But anyway, these two guys are looking into a story. They're news reporters, and they're looking into the story of this creature or a ghost or this sort of weird will-o'-the-wisp that these people saw. They told the newspaper, and I guess it must be a slow news day. So it's these two guys. They go off to find out what's going on, and they meet this couple that tell them, we saw this floating thing in the trees, and it ate our food or something like that. So the guys go, okay, we'll stay there. I don't really want to spoil the ending of the film because it's a pretty awesome film. It's not that long. It's about near a 50-minute movie. And they go off, and sure enough, they leave some food hanging off of the trees for whatever this creature is to eat it. And they are lucky because the first night they do it, because usually you see these ghost adventure shows or something, they never see ghosts or nothing. They don't see anything. The first night that they're there, they actually see this apparition, this small little floating thing, which also it becomes like a bug. And the bug itself ends up being ingested by one of the gentlemen, or it ends up being on its shoulder and then somehow ends up being inside of him, which causes him to have an insatiable hunger. He's just eating and eating and eating and eating, can't stop eating what his wife's cooking. His wife's not able to have a baby, and that figures into the story later on in the film. And it's a romp. It reminded me a little bit of Biotherapy because there was also sort of this supernatural-esque dude in a slicker and a hat. Not a slicker, like a long jacket and a hat, and he's like some weird guy that I guess was affected by this whatever this Gakidama creature is. But the best part is it's a solid little movie. Fantastic gore effects, great body horror stuff in it. So that was really cool to see that. Essentially male pregnancy, but on overload. There's one part where a creature leaves some guy and busts his jaw open and destroys it. And he's able to get surgery and get it fixed like a couple months later with no like surgery scars, which is very bizarre. I don't think you could be able to talk if your jaw fell off, but in this magical world it was able to be fixed. And I really, really liked the whole pulpy, weird, cartoonishly manga-esque feeling of this film. It's shot beautifully. I tried to look up what else this director had did right now before I did this episode, Masayoshi Tsukita, and he really did not direct much. He did Gakidama, and then he also did something called Suki, and he was a cinematographer on a film called Afterlife, which has an interesting premise. Tokyo no Kyujitsu, throw away your books, rally in the streets. But I tried to I try to see if there's anything else. That was like his last directing gig was in 2000. So obviously that's more than 20 years ago at the time of this recording, because he is mostly a photographer, and everything that popped up when I Googled him was a lot of David Bowie material. So I guess he was a very prolific photographer with David Bowie, so much so that he released a book of unseen photographs like a couple years ago. He's now in his 80s as of this recording, and he did a pretty iconic photo of. I'm not really a David Bowie fan. Not that I hate him, I just don't know much of his music. I'm aware of his music, but I like one of my favorite songs because I was growing up in the 2000s was "I'm Afraid of Americans," the remix by Trent Reznor. But he took this really iconic photo that even if you don't know much about David Bowie, you're aware that there's sort of certain photographs of him that exist, and one of them is like with his hands in this certain like JoJo Bizarre Adventure sort of pose with one hand up, facing away from him, and one hand above his head. It's, if you've seen it, you're like, okay, one is on his chest, and one is hand with the back of his left hand facing forward, and he sort of has this off look with him. And if you've seen that photo, you're like, okay, so that's the director of this movie did that photo. It's a very iconic image. Even if you don't listen to Bowie's music, you would know this photo. So this guy is like very good with photography. Even the film itself, when it begins with just sort of a normal shot of two guys on a train, and you see the background whipping past by through the window of the train, it looked good. Like, this movie just looks really good. Even if you see a VHS rip of the film, it's just a beautifully shot film. And then we're not talking about stuff like where it's an Ang Lee type of film where everything's gorgeous. It's just everything falls into frame spectacularly, and that's because this guy obviously has an eye for aesthetics. It's a fantastic looking film. I think every character fits their role well. I think the protagonist of the film, I guess you can say, when he's eating, it's just disgusting. Like, just when they're just eating so much, it's disgusting. The body horror stuff is fantastic in it. I really don't want to spoil it. The Gakidama monster itself, it's kind of charming because it's just this little puppeteered little monkey, not a monkey, but like a skeleton monkey sort of creature that runs around towards the end, and then there's like a whole fight with the wife of the main character and the Gakidama creature, while the husband has now been completely altered by this monster with an unending need to eat, and then his friend is also going through it, and then there's that mysterious stranger guy who has connections to this will-o'-the-wisp Gakidama creature, and it's just a fun movie that I totally say you should check it out. It's the best out of the 4 that I've seen for this horror deconstruction for October. So I think it's the best, and just see that. Biotherapy and also Guzo, and you'll have a good sort of trilogy of Japanese Splatterfest films. I'm sure there's plenty of other Japanese Splatterfest films that I'm going to watch. I want to see Lucy Sky Diamond. I want to see, there's a movie called Cyclops. So it really is great 80s aesthetics, super gory, disgusting type of material. I really, really had fun with this one. So I would give this movie an 8 out of 10. Buying some birds, they get mutilated and destroyed, and you go, oh, okay, all right, whatever. And with that, this has been the Horror Deconstruction. Thank you for listening.